careless as the day you sailed with the Skull Rock podcast. Proceed at your own risk, and mark well me words, ladies. Dead men tell no tale.
Whether you're a lifelong Disney fan or theme park junkie or someone who just loves great storytelling, you found your new favorite show. Welcome to Skull Rock Podcast. I'm Aljon Go, musician and longtime Disney, Marvel, Star Wars fan, and pop culturist. And this week, joined by a very special co-host. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Cat. I'm an experiential producer, a film historian, Aljon's co-host over at Dining at Disney. Welcome to the Skull Rock Podcast.
All right. And welcome back to the show, Cat. Always wonderful to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Dave is right now gallivanting along Gay Paris, and he'll be back next week. But we do have an awesome interview that he was able to bank for us. This is part 3 of JJ Sedelmaier's podcast trifecta. And JJ is really prolific. And if you don't know JJ, you should, because his company is absolutely awesome. Sedelmaier Productions, JJ Sedelmaier Productions, produced a lot of the stuff for TV Funhouse. And I think that if you're a fan of Saturday Night Live, like I was and will be again, because it seems to me like they're getting back on track. I think you and I have been talking about this, Kat. The skits are funnier. And you know, that animation from Beavis and Butthead and the Smigel shorts for TV Funhouse were so hilarious. And he was, you know, once again, a key figure in making that kind of snarky, kind of animated content happen, which was so funny. So we'll be talking more with JJ here today. In the meantime, I hope you had a great weekend.
Yeah, you know, we're getting through the year. Can't believe it's almost June, but
where is the time gone?
We're so close. We're so close to The Mandalorian Grogu. We're so close to Spider-Man Brand New Day.
Yes.
And before we know it, Doomsday will be here. So bring it on, 2026.
I can't believe it. You know, I knew that it was going to get here sooner than later. And here we are. Star Wars back in theaters. Marvel back in theaters. Disney Plus just rolling with the Marvel content, which is amazing. I haven't even had a chance to check out some of the Star Wars and Marvel content because I've been so busy with the kids. Like I was saying before we started rolling, I said there's so many great things with Daredevil and the Punisher that I cannot even play them when the kids are awake. You know, when it's kid time, we're watching DuckTales. We're watching The Croods. We're watching all kinds of stuff of animated shows. And there's no way I'm going to play anything from Frank Castle running roughshod on the streets of Hell's Kitchen. There's no way.
No.
Ain't going to happen. I mean, the trailer alone for the Punisher, One Last Kill was just, I mean, I would say it's mind-blowing, but that would be on the nose, wouldn't it?
A little, but not far off from the truth.
I mean, yeah, I know. But anyway, we'll get into it in just a little bit. Quick plug. Once again, Arnie Leibovit, great friend of the show, and he's been on the show talking about Puppetoons and restoring all those wonderful Gumby shorts and things of that nature from George Powell. Now we've got another screening from The Land Beyond Beyond, The World Past Hope and Fear, over at the Frida Cinema, and a place that you know, Kat. The Frida, Ray Harryhausen's Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. And you can see it the way the audiences did in 1958, only on the big Technicolor screen. Now, this has been lovingly restored by Leibovit and Friends, and you can check it out. I remember watching The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. It was one of my grandmother's favorite films, and I can't wait for this screening and to hear all the great reviews from it. Of course, this inspired filmmakers of a generation: Spielberg, Lucas, Jackson, Cameron, Landis, and many others, including the imaginations of yours truly and Kat's as well, I'm sure. You can check it out Saturday, July 25th, 2026 at the Frida Cinema in Santa Ana. Ticket links are in the show notes, so just check it out. You've been to some events perhaps there at the Frida. Great place, isn't it?
Many.
Yes.
Yes, the Frida is beautiful. It's a beautiful theater. It's great. Can't recommend it enough. Go see movies in independent theaters.
Absolutely. What a great experience that is. Rare video appearance with Richard Eyre, The Genie of the Lamp. And you'll also see 2 more restored George Pal Academy Award-winning Puppetoons hosted by Arnie himself, Arnie Leibovitz, and friend of Ray Harryhausen. And that is great. It's going to happen doors at 6. The show starts at 7 with all that fun stuff that Arnie's going to be doing. So please check it out. Show notes will have all those links so you can get your tickets while they last.
Pam, she wrote this great review of my poetry book.
That's my pick.
I read a great review.
Your girlfriend got a great review.
Oh, that's my pick, too. Sorry.
Excuse me while I start the projector.
Skull Rock Podcast, Picks of the Week. All right. And it's been a busy week for me. Cat, I'll just get mine out of the way. I did a quick little gig with a company band playing backup to a lot because I like to enable my teammates to have fun on stage because I'm way past my stage prime. So I'm playing backup bass for everybody. So I'm playing stuff from The Clash and the Ramones and playing stuff from, just what else did I play? I mean, I played Elvis Costello songs and stuff like that for our staff. And then I sang Given to Fly by Pearl Jam. It's the first time I've sang anything unplugged. We did an unplugged version and I enabled our team because a lot of them are too shy to get up there on stage. And our CEO has said that as you get older, the threat of, being scrutinized increases. So your creativity tends to diminish as you get older, and getting up there on stage tends to be a little bit difficult for people. So I have no shame. So I also learn songs very easily. So I just get up there and it's like, hey man, just go ahead and do this. But I personally have not sang in front of an audience as the lead singer. I've always been a backup singer and instrumentalist, but I actually sang some Eddie Vedder from one of my favorite Pearl Jam songs from Yield, Given to Fly. And that went really well. Everybody was like, man, you just belted it out. And I said, yeah, I mean, it's really cool. I haven't really done that in a long time, but I am a huge Pearl Jam fan. So I had to get up there and do it. And he had a great time playing. He's never played in front of an audience before. So it was really nice to do that.
Cool.
It is. It was really fun. And then to play some of my favorite songs from Elvis Costello and The Clash and the Ramones was just like, rock and roll, punk rock fantasy come to life as always, because I'm a big punk rocker, but really cool stuff. Before we get into your list, because I know it's extensive, I was only seeing, you see, that's why I'm just going to get my stuff out of the way first to get out of Cat's way. But I did see a film on Hulu, Strange Harvest. This film is a folk horror, found footage style film, but it was shot in the way of one of those ID shows like Evil Lives Here, right? Or in Ice Cold Blood with Ice-T, people would come in and do these kind of real, true life setups for these horrific things that happen documentary style. And they usually are like 30-minute shows or, 50-minute shows, what have you. And it's the true crime thing is a real big deal. Like I'm a big fan of the true crime TV genre. And this movie is dramatized. The boilerplate reads, detectives are thrust into a chilling hunt for Mr. Shiny, a sadistic serial killer from the past whose return marks the beginning of a new wave of grotesque, otherworldly crimes tied to a dark cosmic force, which kind of aligns with the planetary, I guess, Venus, Jupiter, and Neptune were all like in the same place. So there's like this symbol that was left at these crime scenes and how they finally were able to catch the killer, if you will. So it is very paint by numbers style, found footage, police cams, security camera kind of stuff, all stitched together to find this Netflix style documentary. Of course, completely fiction. But I would say I give them high marks because it's authentic. If you didn't know, if you walked into the room while I was watching this, you'd be like, "Oh, cool, something's on, Discovery," or whatever the Law and Order True Crime channel is. You know what I mean? So it's like one of those
Yeah.
things. It's really well done. Now, was it a little flat? I would say it's maybe 6.5 out of 10 for me overall, just because the vibe. I feel like there was a lot of filler in this to make it to that hour and a half kind of time frame. So, it could have been shorter. Yes, it could have been, but maybe it just lends itself to the style it was actually trying to emulate, that TV show. You know what I mean? The TV show style. So overall, like I said, 6.5 out of 10 for me. Wasn't a complete waste, but there was a lot of good points. And I would say that it was all done in the editing room. I mean, the story was good. Everything was fair to Midland, so it gets a pass for me.
Interesting.
Now, Kat, let's talk about. Oh, and I did see one more thing. I saw the Carano. Yeah. Well, I follow MMA, but I'm not like a huge super fan. So the Rousey Carano fight, which was on MVP, I think it was one of their very first MMA fights that was on Netflix. It was over and done with in like 3 minutes. And Ronda won. And here's the thing. She came in with Gina Carano, and both of them looking great as women fighters do, which, by the way, was 10 to 15 years past their prime when they were in prime fighting condition. But the moment Rousey got on her being like a Olympic medal performer, I knew it was over, because she would get her to expose her arm and get her dreaded arm bar on, which no one gets out of. No one gets out of Ronda Rousey's arm bar. Okay. So she got on her, and literally in a few seconds she was tapping, and it was over. And it was like, Kristen was like, "What just happened?" It was like over and done with. I was like, and it's over. And Rousey ended up winning. Of course, they gave each other a big celebratory hug afterwards. So that was really quick. And I'm glad that it was on Netflix, because it would have been horrible if I paid for it.
Yeah.
It's not like one of those boxing matches, but you have to be a fan of that kind of stuff. But that's what I saw this week. Kat, we'll move it on to you.
2 heavy hitters, literally. Jeez.
I know, right? I know it.
Well,
Anyway,
whenever I guest on this podcast with you, Aljon, I feel like I'm obligated to consume a lot of media during the week, because I'm like,
sorry.
I'm boring. I've watched the same episode of Murder, She Wrote 3 times. What am I doing?
Golden Girls gets worn out digitally.
Yes,
I don't know how that happens.
I'm like, I've watched this episode where Sophia gets married again like 3 times. What am I doing?
Yes.
So I did kind of motivate myself this week to watch a bunch of new stuff. And honestly, I probably would have watched a lot of this stuff anyways, but I mean, here we go.
Okay.
So, starting off really strong, Sheep Detectives.
Yes, tell us about it.
Sheep Detectives truly was Knives Out for the pure of heart. It was incredible. I cried, I laughed, I saw it in a full theater. Everybody in there was losing their minds. It was wild. It was wild. I loved it. What's a cozy mystery missing? Apparently, sheep is the answer to that question now and forever. It was great. Was it predictable? Absolutely. But I loved every second of it. I had a great time.
Nice.
I can't recommend this enough. It's just whimsy, fun. Please see this film. Please. This
Nice.
you could take the kids to see this. The kids could watch this for sure. It's great.
I love it.
Then I saw Mortal Kombat. Don't take the kids to see this. It was really bad. I had an amazing time. I loved it. It was so fun. It was so fun. I was pleasantly surprised by Carl Urban, as always. I just had such a great time. The kills are ruthless. The CGI is crazy. Luddy Lin somehow got more ripped for this, and I can't comprehend how he did it, but I'm here for it.
Nice.
If you're a fan of not the original film, like the 2021 version, because that one was not great, but if you're a fan of like the original game, you're gonna like this movie. It was really fun. I was pleasantly surprised by it.
Are you a video game? Are you a fan of the video game, Cat?
I am a fan of the video game. Like
Okay.
This is probably the last time I played video games on a regular basis was like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter.
Okay, so my wife is too. Mortal Kombat 2 was her jam. She loved to play Melina.
Yeah.
And I have every Mortal Kombat game. I have it all. I bought the anthology just recently. I'm a Mortal Kombat 1. I've got all the Mortal Kombats on my Steam Deck. It's like I am obsessed. So I'm glad to hear that it went great, because the 2021 film, Mortal Kombat, kind of the reboot, didn't hit for me at all. There were some great moments. You know, Sub-Zero and Scorpion being one. So those were some big hits, but it didn't really connect with me, and no Johnny Cage in that film. This one, I'm great to hear that Urban just is always just the best. He is the best.
He gives a great performance. He's having a great time. I feel like Carl Urban is always having a good time. No matter what he's doing, he's always having a good time. On The Boys.
Oh my God.
He's just doing whatever he wants, and I love that for him.
Yes.
And this character is like if Hank McCoy and the character from The Boys had a baby. And it's not Hank McCoy, that's not right.
No,
Hank
I know what you're
McCoy's
saying.
the Beast. But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
The Star Trek character that he plays, that I'm like having a brain fart. But
Bones. Dr. McCoy. Dr. McCoy.
Dr. McCoy and the from the Boys had a baby, like spiritually. That's what this character is, and I love it so much. It's crazy.
I do love it. Good.
And yeah, I saw that in a full theater also, and everyone was like losing their minds over every kill. Every kill is better than the last.
Love it.
People were screaming. It was incredible.
As it should be.
I had a great time.
As it should be, yes.
Was it a great movie? Probably not. But I had a good time.
Yes.
I also saw
Okay.
Which is, I don't know if other people are calling it this, but I'm going to call it this. Very engaging blaxploitation film for the 21st century, in my opinion. It's incredible. It starred Vivica Fox, Sterling K. Brown, Janelle Monáe's in it, and Cara Young and Mallory Johnson played twins who are on a revenge mission set by their mother. And it was really, I had to sit with it for a while, because it's about surviving trauma and how, women deal with violence in their relationships and their families, and how they respond to it. And it was just really moving. It's shot beautifully. The styling is incredible. I can't say enough about this. It came out of left field. I was not expecting it, and it really made an impact. Yeah, I had to sit with this one for a while, but it was produced by Tessa Thompson, who's, an incredible filmmaker and actress. And I was very, it said a lot for 90 minutes, and I'm definitely going to have to see it again, because it was crazy. It was crazy.
So you said blaxploitation, so really
Yes.
it was like really grindhousey, huh?
Oh yeah, very grindhouse. It was like edgy noir. The storytelling was really interesting. The way it was colored and shot was really interesting. Something about it irked me, and I think it was the editing, but that's just like a personal thing. But overall, I was really impressed with it. I was, as like a debut feature and something so heavy, I was just blown away.
I can tell in your voice, that it really made an impact with you. So, wow, that'll be something to watch for sure. I'm a big fan of Tessa Thompson, so this is going to be good.
Yeah, Sterling K. Brown is just a powerhouse. And Vivica Fox is in this movie for like a grand total of 3 minutes, and she just makes this incredible impression. And her presence, even though she's not like on screen through the whole thing, her presence is just felt across the board every minute of the movie, which I think is so telling of her as an actress and a storyteller.
Wow.
And the two actresses who play the twins are just, they're incredible. They're incredible. And honestly, this movie is about a family who suffered a trauma that involves fire, so trigger warning. But the burn makeup the application is absolutely flawless.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to do, and it looks so authentic and real. I was very impressed. And a lot of the people who worked on this film shot right after Sinners wrapped. So a lot of the people who worked on this film also worked on Sinners. So you can see, like, they went from Sinners, which was like multi-million-dollar budget, huge film, to this, which was, $1 million budget, little, quaint, quiet, and just like gave 1,000% to this. It's crazy. It's crazy. I can't recommend this one enough.
I love it when filmmakers use their constraint as a superpower,
Truly.
Really cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Something that wasn't quiet or quaint was The Punisher: One Last Kill.
Okay.
Which John Bernthal is doing something crazy with Frank Castle. Like, it's me. I haven't watched any trailers for Spider-Man, but I know that he's in it. And I am so interested to see how this Frank Castle teams up with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, who's like yuckity yuck, but also sad. And John Bernthal is like, there's like no words for what John Bernthal is doing in this special that he co-wrote. P.S. co-wrote this special.
Yeah.
And it's violent. It's bloody. It's nonstop. Just like kills. One last kill? No, 2,700 last kills. Honestly, it's crazy. It's crazy. But I feel like John, as a person, has done so much work with like veterans who have PTSD. And that work shows on the screen every second that he plays this character. And it's so impressive what he does. I feel like it was Van Lathan over on The Midnight Boys who was like, John Bernthal is going to be synonymous with Frank Castle the way that Robert Downey Jr. is with Tony Stark. The way that, and I was like, yes. Like, I don't know, and I don't think I could name another actor who could play this role the way that John is doing it. And it's bloody. It's painful. But I would take 10 seasons of this. I'm not going to lie to you. I could watch him play the Punisher all the time.
I agree. They did something really special when they casted those group of defenders for the Marvel TV shows back in the Netflix era.
Yes.
They are so good. And Bernthal as, the Punisher. I mean, it's like exactly what you said. I mean, it's hard to imagine someone else but Robert Downey playing Iron Man. It's hard to see someone else someone else playing Deadpool or Wolverine. I mean, these people just embody those characters. They believe so much in it. They've invested so much in the character that they write, for the character, like, the Frank Castle character with John. And I mean, I'm so impressed with how those series turn out. The Charlie Cox Daredevil, all of that. So I'm looking forward to seeing this myself. It looks super brutal, which is the way it should be. When I read Marvel comics, and you're a comic book, fan too, you read the books.
Yep.
I want it to be that kind of the Marvel imprint that's like on the side because it's so brutal. Like it is not a PG-13, we're going to see one last kill and we're going to go, yeah, it's one last kill before he turns PG-13.
Truly.
And I hope he comes back for more rated R Punisher, which
Yeah.
I think there's a place for it. I mean, if Deadpool Wolverine rated R was any litmus test of how Marvel can kind of segment itself off to a very, hardcore adult audience, this is another case in point, right, Kat? I mean,
Absolutely.
it can be all things.
And I agree 100%. And I feel like this and Daredevil Born Again, it's dark and it's gritty and it's that era and version of Marvel Comics that we don't get a lot in the theater. And I think that it's just as important as the colorful pages that we do get in the theater, because some of this is like backbone Marvel Comics lore and history, and ongoing storytelling. So to completely erase it when you're bringing it to life, it seems a little disingenuous. And I love that they're kind of leaning into it with Daredevil Born Again. Like I said, like that Daredevil Born Again is bloody. It's maybe not this bloody, but it's bloody and it's rough and it's
Yes.
Vincent D'Onofrio punching innocent victims in the face in a government building. I'm really impressed this year. I said this last week, I think, but I'm really impressed this year with the Marvel TV slate. I think it's really impressive. This Wonder Man, they're doing something really special and they're kind of letting these guys cook, and I'm into it. I want to see more of it.
Yes.
Because that's what made the original Marvel television slate so successful the first time around. They just let them cook. They let them do what they needed to do to get the story from the page to the screen.
Yeah. Well, that's why fans love Marvel Comics.
Yes.
People like Marvel Comics because you fall in love with the stories and the volumes and the way certain writers write. So let them write.
Mm-hmm.
The proof is in how good those books are. They're so good that they adapt them for the TV or they adapt them for film. That's how good it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it should be. Revere the source material. You can do no wrong. There's a reason why this stuff has lasted over decades, and it's because of the depth of storytelling and those characters. So
I 100% agree.
There you go. There you go.
And the last thing I watched this week, well, not the last thing, I watched Off Campus. I'm not going to talk about it because I want you to continue to respect me as a human being. I've gone full heated rivalry. I can't talk about it. It's too much. What I can talk about is The Crash on Netflix.
Okay.
I was saying this to a friend yesterday. I am fascinated with the desire for European filmmakers to come to the United States and make documentaries about American crimes.
Yes.
Because not that there's not crime in Europe, there is crime in Europe, but the crime in the US is so unhinged that they feel like they need to turn it into this thing. It's already a spectacle and they're just capitalizing on the spectacle, and I respect it. I'm talking about The Staircase or those kind of things where British filmmakers come over and they make a documentary and they ask different questions than what American documentary makers are asking, and I think it's really fascinating.
Yes.
And this is one of those types of documentaries. This was made by a British film crew. It's a crime that took place in the US and it's harrowing. She's on screen right now. Mackenzie Shirilla was driving a car that crashed into a wall at almost 100 miles an hour, and the two other people in the car with her were killed on impact. She survived. Please watch this documentary. It capitalizes on American social media use versus actual public perception, which I think is a really interesting thing, especially right now with all the AI slop that's going on.
Yes.
to tell this story, and it's crazy. And the Mackenzie is in this documentary talking from prison. Spoiler alert, she's convicted, but
Wow.
she's in this talking about what happened and how it happened and her lack of memory of what happened. And her friends are in this documentary talking about her relationship, her parents, the parents of the victims. Everybody kind of agreed to be interviewed for this, and it's heartbreaking. Um, we've talked about this a little bit, Aljon, but I think that Netflix True Crime they're doing something great with true crime. It's not, I'm a Snapped girly. I love to watch Snapped. That's like a comfort show for me where I just watch, I'm a, fan of women's rights and women's wrongs. It's fine. But this is one of those stories where they try to make her look sympathetic, and then she ruins it. So if you have a chance to watch this and you're not like fully triggered by what this is about, which is honestly domestic violence, I would say definitely check this one out. It's really compelling, and I'm probably gonna watch it again. I'm not gonna lie to you because I feel like I missed some stuff, but it's all in there. It's wild.
The fact that you want to see it and revisit it means that it is something worth watching to me. So I will certainly bookmark that and watch it. Wow, that's a lot of really cool stuff we just talked about. And well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Once again, gang, we've come to the end of this segment, but if there's anything you'd like for us to watch and review, I'm sure I'll let Kat in on it too, because I want to get her take. It's always fascinating.
Yay.
Please send us those emails and we'll check it out in a future episode. And now it is time for, what is it time for?
Like me, they spend all their time studying pop culture that Halliday was obsessed with.
I'm really interested in what I like to call pop culture news.
People know that in 22 minutes they can get their fast, fun pop culture fix.
Skull Rock Podcast. This week in Disney and pop culture.
Devil Wears Prada 2 that you reviewed last week is still kicking butt over this next weekend. Cumulative domestic 180 million plus. It's trending. It's holding strong. Total global sales. It's going to continue to climb as a big hit for the mouse for this year. So good for them. I know that you were kind of lukewarm to the film, but that's okay. Not a problem. What is also striking a chord with people is Mortal Kombat 2 for Warner. They are set to do about 38.5 million over the weekend. And it looks like maybe on pace to hit 61 million over the weekend. A lot of Mortal Kombat fans out there. Don't screw it up, Warner. Don't screw it up. Cat likes it. I'm sure I will too. Michael continues to roll along pretty strong, 37.9 million over the weekend, grossing over 241, or I guess on trend to hit 280 million, which is super strong for Lionsgate. The Sheep Detectives, so Wolverine and a bunch of sheep, opened at 51 million and is doing well. Billie Eilish's concert film, 7 million opening weekend. Super Mario Galaxy's hanging in there as well, 412 million globally. It's going to be another huge one for them. Did you see Super Mario yet?
No.
No, are you a Nintendo person?
Yeah, but I didn't love the first movie, and I don't know. I feel like I'll probably watch it when it comes to on demand, but I don't know.
You're not a fan. Well, I don't see how you can go wrong with it. I'm a big fan of the entire crew, and especially Jack Black singing awkwardly. So that'll work out great. And the kids love Super Mario. So I'm sure we're going to check that out as well. I got my daughter, they're going to love this, to finally play Donkey Kong. It's like her first video game. And she's like, Daddy, I want to play Donkey Kong. I'm like, okay, great. Good. Let's try it. And she just got so frustrated at it. I tried So it was daddy-daughter time yesterday. And so it took her out for ice cream. I think I told you this, Kat. I took her out for ice cream. She loved it. We had a good time. And then I said, well, so do you want to play a game with daddy? And I couldn't get Pokemon to get on TV. I was going to do like Pokemon Stadium for her. And it's like, well, let's just do this instead. So we just busted out the Super Mario and Pac-Man. And the early video games were really hard for her because, believe it or not, it took a lot of skill to play the early video games.
Truly.
Even if you had to just use the most simple thing, you don't even have to worry about buttons with Pac-Man or, and with Super Mario, it's just like climb and jump. And I say Super Mario, I meant Donkey Kong. And she was getting a little frustrated, but Evan helped her. She was doing awesome. She's doing very good for a kid. Project Hail Mary in there as well, rounding out the top 10. In terms of Disney, we talked a little bit about it. I mean, we had the Q2 for their fiscal year 2026 earnings with growth. They had a lot of layoffs, gang, over this year. There was a ton of layoffs, especially in the realm of visual effects. And we saw that Marvel let go their team. I don't think Kevin Feige was aware of it either. It was one of those things where the mouse has had to cut a bunch of people. But Josh D'Amaro, and whether you like him or hate him at this point, I certainly am very hopefully optimistic about Josh D'Amaro's turn as CEO. Emphasize storytelling, innovation, and a building of culture of efficiency, which is a very, very telling term of we're going to do more with less. And ongoing operational reviews and further layoffs discussed. So this happens all the time, I will say, as they try to do the best that they can with less. And that's every company, not just Disney, y'all. But we'll see. We'll be, keeping you updated. We talked a little bit on Dining at Disney about Soarin' Across America, debuting at Epcot for the bicentennial. Did I say that right, Kat?
Semi. No, I can't do it. Nope.
The 250th anniversary. Yes. So we talked about that. And once again, Daredevil Born Again, season 2, Star Wars Maul, Shadow Lord, Mandalorian and Grogu in theaters this week. And the red carpet happened. Did you catch any of the Mandalorian red carpet?
Yes. And also, Pedro was at Disneyland yesterday in the armor. Did you see this?
No, I didn't see that. I missed it.
Sigourney, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni were out at Disneyland yesterday, and they surprised guests with Pedro dressed as the Mandalorian on both Rise of the Resistance and the other one, Smuggler's Run. I'm dead.
Nice.
So incredible.
I love it when actors do that kind of stuff. And we've seen it time and time again in the parks. We saw it with Tom Holland when he did the whole Spider-Man thing, which was amazing. So great to see it. I'm here for it. And I did see a little moment between, I think Ming-Na was in the theater for that. And when she met Sigourney, and the red carpet, and she fangirled out during the red carpet, which is so good. Oh, Ming-Na's the best, right? And she fangirls it. She couldn't even help herself. Ugh. And to be honest, I feel that way too, because Sigourney Weaver, I grew up watching Sigourney in so many different things. She's like one of the original girl bosses anyway. But Sigourney is the best. I've loved her as Ripley. To me, it's like, you look at Sigourney Weaver and Carrie Fisher and all these great women heroines over time, and you're like, man, that is awesome. And then to see Ming-Na, because she's really been the trifecta, right? She's like the Triple Crown Gold winner of Disney, because she was, Mulan, and, she was the Cavalry in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then she's in Mandalorian. And so she is literally like everywhere Disney is, right?
Yep.
So, that was awesome to see.
She's great.
I do too. She's the best. And she is a knockout. She is a knockout today, just like she was a knockout as Chun-Li like 30 years ago. She's amazing. So all that to say, Disney's on a high right now. Looking forward to seeing all the great new Disney stuff in the parks. So now I think it is time that we pay homage. So let's do it, shall we?
Skull Rock Podcast.
You know, you're like that little arrow on your hat, straight and shining, and that's the way I'll always remember you.
I'll always remember you. I'll always remember you.
I'll always remember you, Sharon.
They hang you, I'll always remember you.
In memoriam.
Well, this week was just like in weeks past, we always have legends that have come and gone. And this week we have here Donald Gibb. Now, you might know Donald Gibb from Revenge of the Nerds and Bloodsport. Passes away at the age of 71. Nerd. And man, that is so sad. I mean, he was such a great comedic figure in entertainment. But once again, you may not know the face, but you remember maybe this clip. Are you familiar with this, Cat?
Oh, of course.
Okay, good. I was gonna say, I mean, that really shaped my childhood. You know, sad to say, Revenge of the Nerds passed away May 12th from the age of 71 from health complications in his home in Texas. Very sad indeed. Mm-hmm. Clarence Carter. Maybe you know Clarence Carter. Clarence Carter did the song The Stroke or Strokin'. Mm-hmm. And this is a song that usually is regulated to play at weddings these days. Is kind of very funny in an adult kind of way. But Clarence Carter, Southern soul singer known for Patches, Slip Away, and Strokin', died earlier this week at the age of 90, recently diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. Wow. So very sad indeed here. How about this one? Dennis Rush, as the ads from Hollywood Reporter come in. I just want to show this picture here. Let's see here. So we have Dennis Rush. He played Lon Chaney Jr. in the James Cagney classic and Howie and one of Howie and Opus's friends on the beloved CBS sitcom. And there it is. Andy Griffith's show. Dies at the age of 74. The man of 1,000 faces. How about that? Then we have here John Barber, the creator and co-host of Real People, dies at 93. I have real memories of the show Real People. Of course, that happened back in the 80s when I was growing up, but the Toronto native also did stand-up and released comedy shows and albums and wrote and produced documentaries about Ernie Kovacs and the JFK assassination. Mm-hmm. Passes away. Last but not least, Claudine Longlet, singer-actress who shot skier Spider Sybich, dies at the age of 84. And married to Andy Williams, she recorded pop albums and starred with Peter Sellers in The Party before being convicted of criminally negligent homicide. That sounds like a Netflix doc, doesn't it?
Yes. If you don't know the story of Claudine, look her up.
Wow. Insane. Well, that is all she wrote for this week. And thank you for hanging in there with us. Now it's time for our main event. Sit back and relax and enjoy Dave's interview with the legendary J.J. Sedelmaier. This is part 3 right here on Skull Rock Podcast.
Hey, let's chat.
Let's chat afterwards. Let's chat. And he said, let's chat again.
Skull Rock Podcast. Interview time.
Well, Aljon, we are back for week 3 with J.J. Sedelmaier, who's an animator, director, designer, a studio boss, and in the epicenter of New York City animation. J.J., welcome back to the Skull Rock Podcast.
It's great to be here. Wonderful to be in the epicenter.
Yeah, you know, I've actually really enjoyed our last couple of episodes chatting with you about your career and everything. And I wanted to shift gears and talk today about the New York animation scene, because really animation was sort of was centered in New York before it was centered out in Los Angeles. Before all the studios moved out there, because the motion picture industry was here in the New York City area, including northern New Jersey and all of that. Can you talk to some of those early people and some of the early history of animation here?
Well, I can't talk to them because most of them are dead, but I can say that, yeah, I mean, the industry, the film industry, was really centered in New York, and it had to do with commerce. It had to do with people like Thomas Edison being in the region, and he had so many irons in the fire when it came to inventions that very much involved in the film industry. And when you put that together with the fact that New York was and still kind of is, the publishing capital of the world, you've got illustrators, cartoonists, authors, all working on the countless, endless periodicals and magazines that were being produced back then. And so you had all of this talent looking for a way to expand, take advantage of all the technology, which seems so, hands-on now, but how do I make a buck? And so many of these people, found, you think of Max Fleischer. I mean, he was working as a cartoonist and illustrator at Popular Mechanics, among other publications. Winsor McKay, the king of comic strips, doing his Little Nemo and Dreams of the Rarebit Fiend. It's interesting because so many comic strip artists work sequentially, and they think sequentially. And when you've got somebody like McKay, superb, I mean, he was like an alien draftsman. He was so good. And when you think of all of these people having no manuals or no books, no podcasts or YouTube videos to refer to as to how to tell them how to do it, everybody was inventing the craft. And so in some respects, in many respects, when you look at the real early films, animated films that were done back then, they're often as intriguing and as inspirational as anything being done today, because they were doing things by the seat of their pants and not following any rules, and there was no formula, and it was a very exciting time. I was guilty as anyone, thinking that the animation industry had started in California. I'm talking about when I moved to New York initially in the late 70s, and I was guilty of thinking that the only viable existence of the industry was the West Coast. It wasn't until I was here for a while, just showing my portfolio around, and asked why I wasn't involved in animation, because my style of drawing and cartooning and so forth seemed to be animation inspired. And, I said, well, yeah, if I want to do animation, it's all on the West Coast, so I'll go out there. And that's when I was told, no, come on. All the Sesame Street being done, all the cartoons being done, all of the commercials and everything. So it was only then that I realized, oh, my God, what a wonderful environment to be in.
Yeah, there was a lot of history here. Because, you mentioned Winsor McKay, not long ago, we were at the Museum of Modern Art and saw a restored version of Gertie the Dinosaur, and some other cartoons that were essentially done in New York City.
And it's so important to step out of our present existence to really appreciate what Gertie was. He chose to animate a dinosaur because he knew that people would have to accept the fact that this was something that he created, because people saw something on film, they thought it was somehow real. So if he did a huge dog, or if he did, whatever, it wouldn't be as magical. Here they're seeing something that had to have been created by the hand of an artist. It had personality, it had character, it had performance. And on top of all of that, he's doing animation. Not only is he animating the character, but he's retracing the background frame by frame by frame by frame by frame. And often the background isn't moving, but it is moving because each tracing that he did, it was just the right amount of varying in the drawing. So it had this lovely life to it, as opposed to just a carved in stone held image that the animated character is working over. So no one had ever seen that. And then, he, again, going back to the influence and the inspiration of chalk talks, where an artist talks and draws and explains and interacts and so forth. He made that into an animated chalk talk because he choreographed it and animated it with him, first of all, him live on stage talking to Gertie, and then going behind the stage, and Gertie reaches behind and picks him up as an animated character, and the audience is amazed. It's really important to somehow find a way to try to go back to that time in order to appreciate how enthralling, how overwhelming this whole thing was, as they probably felt themselves when they started seeing this stuff happening. And so, and each time somebody did something, it was only natural that all these creative people were like, how'd they do that? How did they do that? And then you also get the skeevy kind of weird aspect of the people who are trying to take advantage of the time to try to appropriate and to patent things, so that anytime anybody uses something that they have created, they somehow again make a buck.
Yeah.
And in some ways, you look at the origin of comic books, or in comic, not so much comic strips, but the comic book industry, also New York centric, was influenced by the pulp publishing industry, which was about as skeevy as you could possibly get. And so New York's a very gritty place. Yeah. But I think it also inspires people to, take the bull by the horns and try to figure out some way of doing it. And you're just surrounded. And to this day, it really is still this way, as much as everything has become online and virtual. There's still this energy in New York City that's just fabulous and continues to inspire. And so, you go back to the turn of the 20th century, that's when things are starting to happen. And then, you've also got, Felix the Cat, Pat Sullivan, who I mentioned in tandem with Otto Mesmer.
Yeah.
Sullivan was, I don't know how many scruples he had, but, that people don't realize how popular Felix was, and the perfect animated character too, because he took full advantage of existing in an animated world. Yeah. and doing things that you could only do in animation. They weren't trying to animate a cat. They were trying to animate this character Felix that was just so much more than a cat.
And you talk about skeevy and people trying to patent stuff, but there was also I'm imagining, and just from what I've read and my knowledge of it, there was a lot of camaraderie and people trying to one up one another and learning from each other. And there was the artists circulating from different studio to different studios and things like that. I sit there and we talk about Gertie the dinosaur, but in the teens of the 20th century, you had the Mutt and Jeff cartoons that were being done. That came out of a comic strip. Bud Fisher was allowing Bowers to do those initial cartoons, and you obviously Pat Sullivan. I think in the 1920s, Felix the Cat was probably one of the most popular characters, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, as popular as Chaplin, the very first televised image was of a figurine of Felix that, as far as I know, Don Oriello still has that actual figurine. But the characters, you had the characters like you said, Mutt and Jeff, and other comic strip characters that were translated into film. I don't include Little Nemo in that because there was something so magical about McKay's intuition that, and his animation of Little Nemo and the stuff that he did really wasn't the same as the comic strip. It wasn't this ongoing sequential story. It was just moving the characters around. But the characters that were created for film, Felix, Oswald, Mickey, they're the ones who also, in that early period, that black and white and early color period, that seemed to really take advantage of being animated. And they weren't weighed down by the laws of the comic strip. They existed as animated entities first and foremost. So the only one that seemed, the earliest one I think that seemed to make the jump successfully, so much so that people forget that he was a comic strip, is Popeye.
Mm-hmm.
The early Popeyes, once he stepped into that animated world, the under the voice mumbling and he had such a character that exploded when he was animated from what he was in Seeger's strip. So it's,
and that's the Fleischers.
Yes, that's the Fleischers. And, when you talk about the camaraderie and so forth, I think it really, when it comes to the artists, the animators, the designers, the people working for the studios and working at the studios, not the owners and so forth, I think there's always been a camaraderie, and there's always been this kind of, you working? Again, like the comic books and the comic artists too. I mean, I've seen so many of them talk at Comic Cons and the Society of Illustrators. When they were working in the 30s and the 40s, they were more than happy. There was no backbiting as much as there was, hey, Jim's working over there. He's having a good time, doing great work, so on. And that continues. I think that continues to this day. I felt it when I was everything from an in-betweener to, an animator in the 80s. And it was great. The industry has this thread. Now, you've got a different kind of existence on the West Coast than you do in New York. West Coast is much more sophisticated. And the New York community is seems to be looser, and in some ways they're more versatile, I think, because you don't get as easily pigeonholed on the East Coast as you do on the West Coast. You can really bounce around, and it feels like it's starting to come back a little bit. It's been a rough few years between COVID and everything else, but that attitude and that feeling starting to come back, and especially with the CFA becoming more present in people's lives, which is terrific. But New York has just, and even if you were sequestered to the animation industry, you don't feel like you've got to stay in there, because you're surrounded by so many different options, whether it's fine art, whether it's illustration, whether it's, whatever. You always feel encouraged to explore outside of your bubble here.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious. I'm listening to what you're saying. I sit there and think to myself, animation's going global at this point. From a standpoint of, it used to be centered in Los Angeles with, a presence. It used to be centered in New York. It eventually became centered in Los Angeles. There's still a presence in New York, obviously. But the center of the industry in Los Angeles seems to be starting to come apart, from the standpoint that there's work going on all over the world. And I know story artists that are traveling now. They travel, I know a couple of guys that are over in Eastern Europe right now working on a project. And so they become more itinerant almost, in traveling for projects.
Well, that's great. And it's always been, I would say since the 60s, I would say it's always had an international presence. I don't know what you call it. I guess what I'm trying to say is, with technology now, it makes it much easier to work internationally and to not necessarily have to travel internationally. That's wonderful if people are starting to actually travel too.
Yeah, and move to different cities where there's greater opportunities. There's a lot more animation going on in Vancouver, Canada now than there ever has been. So
now, again, the film industry, it's the same way. Yes. Vancouver is, and they go there because it's cheaper to work.
Right.
And they don't have the same sort of union stuff going on either.
Yeah, there's no union in New York anymore. There used to be, right? And I would ask you, because you were on both sides of the fence. You were a union member and you were a studio boss, right?
Right.
So from my standpoint, can you talk a little bit about, have the unions started to hurt themselves at this point? I mean, we all know what was good about the formation of the unions when they formed, but are they at a point where they're starting to constrain employment?
Well, first of all, the reason there was an animation union to begin with, the reason that there's ever a labor union to begin with is usually because the workers feel like they're being taken advantage of.
Correct.
And so, it started in New York. Fleischers went to Miami because they could get away from the whole union bubble there. And I think sooner or later, any studio that got large enough started producing enough work and generating enough money, is going to confront if they're not careful, they're going to confront a situation where the workers are going to feel like they're being taken advantage of. And often back then, whether it was Fleischer, whether it was Disney, whoever, their reaction was, how come I've treated you so well. I've given you work. I've given you jobs. We're one big happy family. And that's the whole clueless sort of situation that is so unfortunate. But another reason a union exists is because there's a structure has evolved or has developed where there's so much work and there are so many people involved in different classifications, but there's a constant workflow. There's a structure. In Los Angeles, because it's in the film industry and because there's so much series work that was being done, much easier to form, organize, and perpetuate a union situation. New York, when you've got people or an industry where people are bouncing around from studio to studio, working freelance on this job, often maybe 3 jobs at the same time. And the studios are confronting situations, whether it's budget or schedule, where they have to deal with client and advertising agency opinions and so forth. And we're all talking about maybe anywhere between a 6, 10, 12-week schedule for a project. There's not the same sort of structure. So, and it's very hard for the studios and for the union members to participate, behave, and conform to what a structure needs to be for a union to exist. So in New York, there was a real crucial time in the early mid-'80s when there were still a lot of people left over from the Fleischer years in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. But there was a new group coming in that didn't know unions from nothing. They didn't know, but they were being told by the union that if you want to work at this studio, you have to be a union member. But don't worry, because if you've got a union card, you're good. That means you're good. Well, a lot of us were like, why does a little card mean I'm good? It does not. It has to do with how good you are and how, and that's why you're hired by the studios. So the union organization with the president and the business manager and so forth were kind of treating us, they would call us the wine and cheese club. And we're not welcoming us into it at a time when we were, gosh golly, gee, I can't believe I'm working in the industry. This is wonderful. It was kind of alienating us. And I don't think the support for the union in New York was ever like it was in California. I would say primarily for those 2 reasons: structure of the industry on the East Coast and the way the new people who were coming in were being treated. If you wanted to gather together in a group and feel good about yourselves, you went to an ASIFA meeting or whatever. Yeah. But the union meeting was just, it wasn't something that was an inviting environment. So ultimately, by the time we opened our studio in 1990, there wasn't really much of a union left anymore.
And why was that? Was it just sort of, people retiring and leaving and they weren't bringing in new members?
I think also technology was starting to allow people to not have to convene at a studio.
Right.
They could work at home. From what I understand, there was a shitload of like open heart surgeries with the older members, and that depleted the budgets and the
health fund,
the account. Yeah. And I mean, boy, at one point it was great. You had full dental, you had, this wonderful health plan. And there were, it was also little studios opening up, whether you're somebody like Michael Sporn or you're maybe a 2 or 3 or 4 person organization or studio, you're not going to be able to adhere successfully to the sort of structure that a union demands. Yeah. Unions are really made for the big studios. And also, when you work at a smaller studio, there's less of a chance that you're going to be taken advantage of.
Right.
So,
because you're wearing multiple hats, the owner, there's a different dynamic inside
absolutely.
That kind of a smaller studio.
Right. And, for so many years, though, from the 50s through the 70s, you had enough big studios in New York, mm-hmm. both theatrical productions and commercial productions, that it made sense, and it translated into a process that was fine. Even the commercial studios were so large, we're so big, we're doing such volumes of work.
Yeah.
That you could do it. I don't know that the Sesame Street studios or the Sesame Street animation was union controlled or done by studios that were union bound. I don't know for a fact that was the case.
Do you think the Fleischers moving to Miami sort of contributed to the demise of the studio? Or was it just that
contributed? Sure, contributed, maybe, sure. But what contributed to the demise of the studio was just the train wreck of a dysfunctional group that the Fleischers were.
Yeah, and they weren't business people, really.
Yes, and that was another thing that people discovered as the industry and the art and the process of animation was starting, is that so many of these people just had no business running a studio, whether it was their people skills, whether it was their financial intuition, whatever. It just was not a good mix. And in order to run a studio, you really, if you can't do it, you need to have people working with you, for you, whatever, that are people, that like being around people.
It's interesting because when you look at the late 20s into the 1930s, the big competitor for Disney was Fleischer, and to look at the two studios in parallel, you had Walt, who was the creative force at the studio, and his brother Roy, who stuck to the business end of things. He was making the studio operate from a business standpoint,
right?
And even
with Walt misbehaving and doing precisely what Roy was telling him not to do,
right?
At least you had Roy taking the edge off of that and running interference and so forth.
But also the sense to engage Kay Kamen and start to merchandise their characters, right? I sit there and marvel at the fact that the Fleischers really were not doing that to the extent that the Disneys were, and they had Popeye, they had Betty Boop, they had other characters that they could have equally have been putting out everywhere, so the public just became not only familiar with those characters but enamored with many of those characters.
Yeah.
And that was a financial revenue stream coming into the studio independent from the film work.
I think that when it comes to Popeye, perhaps it probably wasn't as easy as we'd like to think it might be, because King Features owned Popeye. But like you said, when it comes to Betty Boop, when it comes to the other characters that they created, but we got to again too remember that merchandising wasn't what it is now, or even 50 years ago, 60, 70 years ago. That was a new supplement to the whole machine and the whole animal. I just think that the Fleischers, they tried to keep it going. They tried, but they had so many internal things going on that were getting in their way. The relationships of the family members to each other.
Yeah.
It was, the more you learn about it, the more you go, how were they even around as long as they were?
Mm-hmm.
But it's fascinating though that's also this New York immigrant kind of feel to it, because you had these different siblings that all had something separately to contribute. And it reminds me very much of the Marx Brothers too. You had these brothers who all could do their own little bit. The difference being that, Chico and Groucho and Harpo basically all got along. It wasn't like Joe and Max and Dave and so forth, and the things that they confronted.
What's amazing to me was in the 30s, which really to me was probably their heyday, the Fleischers.
Yeah.
They were very inventive with a lot of the stuff that they were doing, you know, the three-dimensional backgrounds and, you know, the platen with animation cells sitting in front of that. And I mean, just all of the things that they were doing were pretty impressive.
And I look at the rotoscoping that was done for Snow White, and I look at the rotoscoping that was done for Superman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love the Superman stuff because it doesn't feel like there's a live action character screaming to get out of underneath the paint and the line.
Right.
The Snow White, and I know Snow White is a favorite and was so fundamentally, you know, just important to the industry, but it's not my favorite Disney film because of the humanoid characters. He just for me. But no, the Fleischers were inventors, they were explorers, and very, very inspirational, and makes it twice as sad to realize that so many of the problems they confronted were from within, I think.
Yeah. What do you see the future of animation now that you've closed down your studio and you spend
end of 24?
Yeah, and you're spending more time with Asifa East. Can you talk a little bit what your view of animation is and what advice you'd give to people who are going to try and break into the industry, you know, as newbies?
I think that if it's possible, if you're really interested in getting into the industry, I mean, in one sense, yeah, there aren't the amount of studios around in general that you can go and work in and observe how things are done and what you would do if you had your own studio, what you wouldn't do if you had your own studio. There's never been a better time for one person being able to do an entire production all by themselves, which was never the case with animation. You needed a minimal crew at best, but now that's not the case. So, you know, technology has made it affordable and possible to do your own films. If you can get your work out there and seen by the right people, and the objective shouldn't be to try to do a series. Your objective should be to expose people to your work so that they want to work with you in whatever capacity you choose to work in. The whole, you know, getting big sort of thing, well known and famous and whatever is fine and dandy, but that gets old real quick when you find yourself overwhelmed by a working experience that isn't really good for you psychologically or physically or mentally, you know, any of that stuff. So the objective isn't to be it isn't to do a series. The objective is to put yourself in a position that allows you to do the type of work that you want to do, whether it's stuff that's coming out of inside of you or whether it's stuff that you're responsible for getting done, working with other talented people. That's what makes it all golden. And there's nothing about the new world out there that should inhibit that from being able to happen. I've struggled with this thing. God, what do I tell kids coming out of school? There's not enough work out there. There aren't enough studios to work at. I don't see stuff on television or on, I don't see stuff that's being produced that makes me go, wow, I wish I knew who did that. I'd love to do. No. I do think that there's a lot of wonderful, endless horizon potential that I'm just not in the epicenter of anymore, not really interested in being the epicenter anymore. But I do see the passion for wanting to be involved in the industry by young people coming in. There are still people like, God love him, Bill Plimpton, who is, the hardest working man in the industry. And he's doing stuff that's entertaining, that's fresh, and, look at his stuff. And certainly if you find yourself in the position to be able to help him on a project, see if you can work that out. That's the other thing. It's hard to find places to intern at.
Mm-hmm.
But
the intern process at these big studios is just really competitive and sometimes ridiculous to try and get your foot in the door.
Yeah. And that's where the schools should come in too and try to kind of lay the foundation for their students and their alumni or their graduates to be able to get exposure to what's going on out there. Again, it's still possible if you see something that you like that's been produced, find out who's doing it.
Yeah.
Find out how they're doing it. Find out if you can just be a part of it. I whether I was working at the ink tank or I was working, with our studio, I always loved getting these notes saying, I saw this that you did, and I would love to just come by and show you my work to see if there's anything. Oh, of course. I mean, you want to be supportive to that.
The one thing I would say, though, is I think that the barrier to entry into animation is so much lower now than it was decades ago. And that's because of the technology, that if you have a laptop and a software program, you can, and a scanner, $120 scanner, or then some of them are even less than that. You can scan your own drawings, you can do digital ink and paint, and you can create your own short films. And there's plenty of distribution channels through social media, TikTok and, doing reels and just putting yourself out into the world,
And I hope the schools are also educating the students and the graduates about how to, how to navigate everything from social media to whatever.
Yeah.
But what is missing, and I don't even know if it's necessary anymore, but what used to be nice is that you'd get, when people came in to show you their stuff, you would not only look at the work that they did, but you'd look at them.
Yeah.
And you'd say, and we took a lot of people in that was based on their personality and not their work.
Yeah.
Because once you get those, and again, there aren't a lot of studios around anymore, but once you get that mixture of people that are can-do, enthusiastic, you just want to be around them. Tracy, she started Blue's Clues. She was an intern at the studio. She was referred to us. You got to meet this person. She's just great. She came in and we just couldn't help but hire her. And she was like this little pollinating bee that would go between all the people and just bathe them in this positive kind of feeling. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's really important to have that kind of environment in a studio, because it makes people want to come in every day. It makes people want to contribute to the work. And if there's anything that I adore, is now reading, whether it's on Facebook or something else that somebody's posted, saying not about the work that they did at the studio, but what it was like being in the studio.
Sure.
And that's really important to your growth as a professional, is being exposed to that sort of stuff. And that's the aspect of the industry right now that's tough to swallow, is that there just aren't those places around anymore. But whatever,
Let me ask you this, because we're getting down to the end of the episode here, but I'd really love to get your thoughts on AI and how AI may be affecting the animation business, both creatively and just from a business standpoint, but also this notion, because there was a quote, I believe it was from Jeffrey Katzenberg, who said 95% of animation jobs will be replaced by AI. Do you believe that?
I would like to not believe it, but there's not a whole lot that allows me to confidently feel that way. For the most part, the motivation for the work that so much of the work that we see is a lazy, stupid, dumb, proven, time-tested sort of approach that does not allow for the loose, creative, human element that's often so unpredictable. Of course, that's what's rewarding about it. But I look at, for the most part, what animation has gone through in terms of the styles. You know, it just, you can use Disney alone to go through you can tell a Disney film from a still.
Yeah.
You know, and then you get to the Little Mermaid. No, everything's brand new again, but then everything looks like the Little Mermaid. It's like when Nickelodeon and Nicktoons did Ren and Stimpy, and then Ren and Stimpy got big, and suddenly everything looks like Ren and Stimpy.
And all the CG films that are coming out all have a
CG,
similar look to them.
You know,
yeah.
and the idea is that, you know, the closer you can find that sweet spot of where it looks real, but it's not real. But for the most part, it just like looks and behaves like, as best as it can, like reality. But that's not what's fantastic about animation.
Right.
I don't care if that's successful and it's, you know, great and it makes people a lot of money and people, you know, go to theaters, and so that's great. But then let's still, though, have that area of exploration and human, the human contribution, the anti-perfect stuff. That's why Bleckman's stuff was so, and it continues to be so wonderfully warm and human, is because it looks like a human did it. It's got all the tentative and introverted kind of feel to it that we all are. So is Katzenberg right? You know, I see stuff that's AI and I go, oh my God, that's so fantastic. Just a, you know, but then it's not, it's more trickery. Because now you can do anything.
See, to me, AI is being trained on what already exists. So AI is regurgitating essentially, you know, what's out there in the world. And if you want to have storyboards done by AI that look like one artist or another artist, it can do it. You know, but if you want it to come up with something original, it'll come up with some original imagery, but it's not going to be really, it's not going to have the soul of a human being actually creating something original. That's just my personal opinion on it. But I also think that AI programs will be able to help independent filmmakers do a lot more in a shorter amount of time for less money.
I would like there to be room for all of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's since the early 80s when I was aware of computers coming in. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to prevent myself from going, ooh, that's kind of cool. I didn't want to just be a curmudgeon that said, no computers. Because I see stuff that's done with AI and I don't want to hate it because it's amazing. But I don't want to lose the motivation, or I don't want to see the motivation to produce hand done animation, human done animation, because it doesn't make enough money. It's not proven. It's not this, it's not that. That's all the stuff that makes it fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. And allows for the happy accidents.
Yeah.
And that's what's so great about today with all of these channels that people can put their stuff up and allow the public to see. You can set up a YouTube channel in 2 minutes, and upload your short film to it, and then use social media to let people know it's there, and to me, that allows those individuals who are doing something, whether it's in New York or Cleveland or Chicago, to actually be seen by people and potentially turn some small project into something bigger, And
that's why the whole commercial industry has been so exciting, because it's just that 30-second opportunity that people aren't so deeply invested in.
Yeah.
They don't kind of leave you alone.
Yeah.
But there's not, you don't see a lot of that now. Well,
JJ, this has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate your time. It's a wonderful world out there, and it's going to continue to evolve. And there's going to be new things coming along, and all the challenges that we encountered when we got into the business. This new generation is going to encounter different challenges, but they're going to become successful if they want to do it, if they're passionate for it. And that's what's so great about talking to folks like you about the industry.
And that's what's been great about the industry. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. And you're doing a wonderful thing, too, by talking to all these people and building an archive that's just fabulous.
Thank you very much, JJ. And I appreciate you being on the Skull Rock podcast. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, sir. Absolutely.
Let's get out of here!
Come on, Scotty, let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here, Lieutenant.
Part 3 in the can, and it's great to hear once again the stories from JJ. It's amazing, and that wraps up Part 3 of our trifecta of interviews with JJ Sedelmaier and his wonderful career doing great stuff. Beavis and Butthead, Schoolhouse Rock, Robert Smigel cartoons, Saturday TV Funhouse for NBC's SNL. Wow, what a career. What a life. Anyway, we're wrapping things up. Kat, thank you for joining us for the show. Appreciate
Thanks
you.
for having me.
I love having you on the show to talk about pop culture and movies and everything. We do appreciate it. If you love the show, please subscribe to our show everywhere you find podcasts. Our little show's on YouTube too. We have some shorts in there. Check out all the commentary. Myself, Dave, of course, now Kat, joining us in the chair every now and again is always fun. Kat, where can people check you out?
You can find me on Instagram at catastrophe at CAT_ASTROPHE. And every week over at Dining at Disney, where I host with Aljon and his lovely wife, Kristen. We talk about Disney food and Disney news and a little bit of what I did today, which is go on a tirade about something off topic. It happens quite a bit over there. So if you're a fan of that, come check us out.
Absolutely. Great time discussing the latest and greatest in terms of Bluey and Mandalorian merch in the parks. So please check that live stream out. It's awesome. You can also check me out, Aljon Go, on Instagram, Aljon Rocks on X, Aljon Rocks somewhere else. I don't know. You can also check us out, like I said, all the social media. We're there. Dave and Aljon at skullrockpodcast.com is the email. You want to check that out. Of course, as Kat said, Dining at Disney, please check that out. Our friends at Sorcerer Radio at SR Sound, check that out. Also, Dave is back on Sirius XM Disney Hits Channel 133, is doing Tunes Behind the Tunes. So please check that out. If you've got Sirius XM, that is a reason to hear it for yourself. Also, oldmillpress.com, you can check out all the great books there, like the wonderful book, The Art of John Keenmaker and Animator's Garden. It's there. You can also check out the story of the Upjohn Pharmacy called A Spoonful of Sugar. Yes, they were selling drugs at Disneyland. Legally, with Stephen J. Hall. So please check that out. More at davidbossert.com. Thanks again for tuning in. Like Dave says every single week, take care of yourselves and each other. He sounds like Jerry Springer when he says that, but I tease him about it every single week. But it's true. Please take care of yourself. We want to see you next week on an all-new episode of Skull Rock Podcast.